For more on Biden's big speech tonight, Simon Marks joining us live from Washington, D.C. So, Simon, the heart of his speech was really selling his jobs and infrastructure plan and unveiling that second part of the stimulus package, American Families Plan. Could this be a game changer for millions of struggling Americans? And what would this mean for the rich and the wealthy in the U.S.?
Well, he certainly argues that it could be, Julie, worth just dwelling on the very unusual scenes that we're seeing after this speech. President Biden now locked into conversation with Bernie Sanders, the socialist senator from Vermont, and also with Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut, both of them darlings of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Under normal circumstances, at the end of this address, the chamber would be packed and the president would be making his way out of it, being congratulated on the speech by Democrats and possibly also by some Republicans as well. But he's lingering on the floor of the House of Representatives to talk particularly to core supporters from the House and the Senate on the Democratic side. And look, I mean, I think if you listen to what the president said, particularly at the end there, channeling Franklin Delano Roosevelt, naming him, it was absolutely apparent that President Biden was portraying himself as a potentially transformational figure in the United States, using the word transformation very early in the speech. And one of the main asks that he had of Congress, and there were many asks of Congress in this speech, was for Republicans and Democrats alike to get behind that American Families Plan, another $1.8 trillion request. But the president doesn't want to fund it through deficits. He wants to fund it through tax raises, as he made very clear in the speech. Tax rises on the wealthiest Americans and closing tax loopholes for large companies that often find ways of paying no income tax to the federal government. He knows that that is going to be anathema to Republicans on the floor and also to some Democrats. There were moments during the course of the speech where we saw the camera dwelling on one conservative Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who has the potential to bedevil the White House on many of the president's major initiatives. And his support would be absolutely critical to get this American Families Plan through, or the president would have to persuade Republicans to come across. Because remember, he's not governing with a thumping majority in Congress, as FDR was back in the 1930s. This is a president facing a Senate split 50-50 down the middle. And it is inevitable that many of the things that he asked Congress to do simply are not going to get done because of the polarized nature of politics here.
Simon, clearly China a target tonight, mentioned several times throughout the address. Mr. Biden emphasizing his long relationship with President Xi, having traveled together some 17,000 miles over the course of their political careers. Biden taking a pretty stern tone, calling this an inflection point and demanding that China play by the rules. Let's take a listen here.
In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict, but I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do for NATO and Europe, not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
A message there for the domestic audience in America as well as for Beijing, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. There were two sections of the speech where President Biden dwelt on China, and there was an early section where he actually engaged in an ad lib. He was about to start talking about that American Families Plan, which he says is going to be a job creator. And that was the section of the speech where he defined China as as a nation that was seeking to become the most significant, consequential nation in the world. And he spoke in that section of the speech, as he did elsewhere, about his worldview that he sees a battle shaping up between liberal democracies like the United States and autocracies like China. And that, he argues, is a battle that the United States simply can't afford to lose. He argued that President Xi Jinping believes that the dissent and tumult that the United States has witnessed over the last 4+ years, the polarized nation of politics here, means that America ultimately won't be able to compete with China on the world stage because it is so hard in this country to get anything done. I think it's also important to underscore that President Biden tonight, still talking with fellow Democrats on the floor of the House of Representatives, flanked there by Senator Jim Clyburn of West Virginia, widely viewed as the architect of President Biden's election win here in the United States. I think it's important to underscore that President Biden in this speech, for the first time, conceded that when he talks to world leaders and tells them America is back, many of them ask him, but for how long? He's never conceded that before. This is the first time publicly he's acknowledged that he's got a sales job to persuade world leaders the country is indeed back on the path to stability, and that some of them, looking at the 74 million votes that Donald Trump won in last November's election, remain unconvinced. The president then later in the speech arguing that is one of the reasons why China sees the United States as an easy target. But those comments about the Biden administration's commitment to the Indo-Pacific region particularly, I think were not just designed for Chinese ears and American ears, but for the ears of leaders throughout the region as well. It was notable that earlier in the day, the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern engaged in a virtual event hosted by the American Chamber of Commerce here and underscored her desire, shared by many other leaders in the region, to hear that kind of language used by President Biden, and he delivered on it tonight.